Maseches Bov Metzia Daf Tes Vov Amud Aleph towards the bottom of the page. Tanya Idach. But first, let's mention the names. The Shirs Le'ulin Shmas Ovi Moiri Menachem Nakiva Us Basholem Sobas Moishe Norman Crow Lebas Tomo Shmuel Avon Ben Yudis Yudis Basrif Kaprina Chai Bas Gula Rochel Ruben Yaakov Ben Golda Esther Gabriela Batzoro Chana Batzima Tomo Nomi Bas Nomi Bela Zisel Inbar Bat Yael Tzvi Herzl Ben Denis Besoich Shachol Yisrael. Okay, let's go. Here we are. Tanya Idach. Line starts with Ud Megazlan. It's about 10 or lines or so from the bottom of the page. We are still in the same topic of the three people. The person who wants the money, the person who owes the money, and the person who bought the field from the one who owes the money, right? It's not that complicated, really.
And the Gazlan in between.
The Gazlan, the one in between is either a Gazlan or a nice guy who actually owes money and his house is mortgaged. These are always the two equivalent stories. Very good. Tanya Idach. Comes another brisa. We started seeing it yesterday, but today Be'ezras Hashem will see it Be'ezras Hashem with better light. The beginning of the sugya is as hard as before. I just want to, sort of like promise you a cookie, a candy. Later on, the sugya will get much easier. Yeah, and then Tanya Idach says a brisa. Another brisa says as follows: A person sold the field to his friend. Very nice. What's the shbicha? The friend, the one who bought the field, he actually improved it. The soda was worth 1 million, and the person invested let's say 100,000 shekels, and now the field or the apartment are worth 500,000 extra. Okay, remember the amounts? Million is the basic. He invested in an apartment 100,000, and now he has a 400,000 extra. Yeah, 500,000 extra, 1.5 million. Very nice. What a happy life is waiting ahead of him. What happened one day? A Baal Choiv, which at the moment we assume means really he didn't know, or he should have known, that this apartment was mishubad, was mortgaged to somebody else, to Mr. Reuven. Mr. Reuven, the creditor, the malve, comes and tofo. He now takes the entire apartment. Oh, what do you mean the entire apartment? How much is he owed? What's the story? Let's see. Kshehu goive. Now, Kshehu goive. Now comes Mr. Buyer, Levi, the lokeach, comes to Mr. Shimon, the middle guy, the one who sold. Shimon the seller. Shimon is either the seller or Shimon the Schwindler seller. Kshehu goive. When the buyer comes and complains and now wants to collect the house that he lost, he's collecting it back from the seller, because achrayis, you owe it to me, that's a warranted apartment sale. Now we assume that the shvach was taken away. The shvach meaning the million, the extra 500,000 that he invested. Let's focus on that now. 100,000 is he invested, but from the investment 100,000 shekel, the improvement came out to be 500,000. Yeah, 100 basic plus 400. Yeah, he made 400,000 in it. Okay. Now let's assume now that he was chased away from the apartment. The entire apartment was taken by who? By the creditor, the banker, the lender, Reuven. If the shvach, like in my story, the shvach is more than the expenses, the expenses were 100 and the shvach is an extra 4. The shvach, the extra 4, the extra improvements worth, which is almost 500,000, the 400, he takes from the Baal HaKarka. Who's Baal HaKarka? From the owner of the land, the seller, the one who sold it to him. That's news for us. The investment money, the money he invested, in our case, let's say 100,000, that he gets from the creditor back. The Baal Choiv, the malve, the lender, gets to sit in the apartment, but he has to pay the one chased out of the apartment for the expenses. I want to stop here for a second and sort of correct what I think the feeling was here yesterday, and I think it was my fault. There is no logic here to say that the Baal Choiv should pay for the expenses. Why? We only say that you have to pay expenses for an apartment that belongs to me and you invested in it. If it was a stolen apartment, then of course the one that was stolen from has to pay the customer the yohitzo because he invested in his apartment. And Allah says, if you invest in my property against my will or without me knowing, without me having to, then we say you pay for the expenses. But that's not the case of Baal Choiv. Baal Choiv, it was not his apartment. The lender, it wasn't his. It was only meshubet to him, but it wasn't really his. So now the question is, it's very interesting that all of a sudden Brisa says that the Baal Choiv, the lender, has to pay the buyer that was kicked out, Levi, that all of a sudden he has to give him the Yetzia, he has to compensate him. Why should he compensate him? If anything, he should complain to who? To the warranty guy, to the seller. He would divide the responsibilities between the seller and the malva, the lender. Let's leave it for now, but that's an interesting point. Now, continues the Brisa, a not so ideal story. The Yetzia was more than a shvach. The apartment was worth $1 million. He invested 100,000, and you know how much it's worth now? 1,050,000. A loss. I know. I'm not confused with the numbers now. I meant what I said. Yeah, he invested 100, and now it's worth 50. Yeah. In other words, unfortunately, he didn't break even. The Yetzia is more than a shvach. The expenses were more than. It's a very shvach. It's more than the actual improvement. Then how much the Baal Choiv should give him? 50. Yeah. In other words, he doesn't get all the expenses. He only gets the expenses as much as the improvement actually came out to be, which means he always pays him the minimum. It's very easy. The Baal Choiv only pays him how much? The Baal Choiv always pays him the lower of the two, either the expenses or the improvement, whichever one is the lower one. That's it. Okay. So all of a sudden we see that a creditor, a malve, who came to take charge of what he's really owed, has to pay for expenses. That's news for us. Frag the Gemara, Veha Shmuel, this Brisa Shmuel, b'may mukim le. How can Shmuel explain this Brisa? Now, maybe we could say, wait, maybe we can say that really, as you mentioned, Yosef, maybe the case here is not about the Baal Choiv, maybe it's about a Gazlan, and then it would make sense. Why? Maybe the apartment was stolen. An apartment stolen, or a flat, or piece of land, what did we say in Bava Kama, is never really stolen. It's there. So when you can have 10 sellers and 10 buyers and billions of them. It does make a difference. At the end of the day, when you came to my apartment, Mr. Innocent Buyer, and you put a new kitchen, and you put new chandeliers, and you put a new sauna and a spa, that's really impressive. But at the end of the day, it was mine all along. From the first second you entered, it was my thing. Then it makes sense to say that if you, Mr. Nigzal, Mr. Victim, if stuff was invested in your apartment, then it's clear halacha that everybody knows from the end of the Masechta actually, that you, the owner, has to pay the investor, the secret investor, you have to pay for the expenses. That's very nice. Then the Brisa would make a lot of sense. If Baal Choiv really means a Gazlan, then mitzad the logics of it, that would be really nice. However, it's not good. Kashya Reisha, but the beginning of the Brisa would not make sense according to Shmuel. Why? Because we all know Shmuel's famous line, which we'll be learning many times. The Omer Shmuel said Shmuel, Lokech mi Gazlan, the person who bought from a Gazlan, leis leishvacha, a Lokech mi Gazlan cannot charge for the extra shvacha, for the 400,000 extra that now are invested in the apartment. He may not go to the seller and charge it back from him. Why? Because originally he gave the seller $1 million, and now the seller gives him $1,400,000. Although it's not ribis, it smells like ribis, and that's why Shmuel says you don't do it. Don't do it. You just say will $1 million and go jump. Yeah. So the Brisa doesn't make sense according to Shmuel, because you can't say it's Gaz if you say it's Gazlan, because a buyer from a Gazlan does not take Bechlal the shvach, the investment extra from the seller. Ibe Baal Choiv, and if you want to tell me the Brisa is about a Baal Choiv, that I already told you that maybe the Brisa is as it is. It's a regular story of debtor, creditor, banker, shibud. Both the first part and the second part of the Brisa are difficult. Why? Domo Shmuel, Baal Choiv goy beis hashevach. Shmuel said the Baal Choiv takes the entire shevach, hook, line, and sinker. Yeah, the whole thing. In other words, the Baal Choiv should not. Why should the Baal Choiv have to pay for the investment? He should take the entire 1.5 million. And by the way, how much is he owed? 1.5 million. In this part of the story, as I told you yesterday, at this stage, the Gemara thinks, how much was the original debt for? How much did he sign in the bank in the Mashkanta when he was young and naive? 1.5 million, right? 1.5 million now is million plus half is the worth of the apartment. Shmuel said, wow, lucky man, Mazel Tov. He says to the Malve, you get the entire 1.5 million. Half was invested. Who cares? It was invested. Invested. It's still part of the apartment. It's part of the flat. You feel bad for who? For Mr. Buyer? Don't worry. The buyer will get 1.5 million from who? From the seller. Not Goslin. Get it all. But the Brisa all of a sudden tells me, singing a new song here about the Malva paying for the expenses invested, for the investment expenses of the buyer. That's for sure not according to Shmuel. Yeah, that's maybe otherwise, I don't know, but it's not Shmuel, so Shmuel is stuck. You see a Bryce against Shmuel. Answers the Gemara. Two potential answers, two potential lines of thought. Ibai Sema means you can say, if you want, you can say the following, an alternative answer. Belokeach mi Gazlan. Yes, we can say that he bought it from the Gazlan. He bought it from the thief from the Gazlan. If he buys from a thief, we said he cannot get the extra shevach that looks like ribis. Remember what we said yesterday? We had two huge exceptions to the rule, and now they're kicking in. Kegoin sheyesh lo karka. If the seller has a piece of land, and the piece of land of the seller is the one that he's paying back the shevach with. In other words, how much did we say in the Brisa that the seller has to pay? The 1 million, right? Plus what? Plus 400,000 of the shevach. If he pays that in the shape of piece of land, another piece of land that he has, it doesn't look like ribis, because land for land doesn't look like ribis. Yeah, not land for piece, land for land. Land for land is not really like ribis, and that, as we said yesterday, so that could be a good ukimta. And it's really, we're talking here about Gazlan, and because it's a Gazlan, the nigzal, the one stolen from, has to pay for the expenses because he invested in your place. Inami, or alternatively, b'shekonu biyadoi, as we said yesterday, if there was a kinyan, let's say kinyan sudal, if they made a kinyan, mamish, a clear transaction to strengthen what they're doing at the beginning of the mechira, and they said any shevach that may come in future, I already owe you now. It doesn't look like ribis, because ribis is about waiting for later. I lend you now, and later on, eventually, it's going to mushroom into a bigger choid. But if they decided that everything is owed right now, that doesn't look like ribis. So that's one answer. Okay, we're talking about a gazlan. Therefore, how did they split the cost when the big trauma happens and we snatched away the apartment worth 1.5 million from the buyer? How? Very easy. The basic, of course, the million goes from who? No question, from the seller. That's basic price. What about the other 500,000? The 100 that he invested really are paid by the nigzal because it was his land. If I go to your house in Dolev, to your house in Nachshon, and I invest in it something, 100, and he comes at 500,000, you have to pay me the 100. That's halacha. What about the rest? The rest of the improvement, the 400,000, would go from who? From the seller. Very good. That's one answer. Ibai Sema, here comes fun. Last line of the page, last but not least. Ibai Sema, alternative answer, Baruch Hashem. The Baal Choiv. We are talking here about a person who actually bought from a Baal Choiv, from a person who owes money to someone, and the karka was taken by a creditor, by a lender, not Gazlan. Nobody here is a thief. And obviously the question is, if so, according to Shmuel, ma pitom, that the lender should pay anything at all. Why? We said a lender does not get shevach. Excuse me, lender gets the entire shevach. Lender gets the entire thing. If I lent you 1.5 million, you sold the apartment of 1 million, another half, I don't know what I'll do with that. We'll see in the future. And then, Mazel Tov, Hashem loves me. You sold your apartment to a very diligent guy, 1.5 million, he made it into an extra million, an extra half. I take the entire 1.5 million and I have to pay you zero. So what's going on? I'm just repeating the question. The Bryce is not good with Shmuel. Why did the Bryce say that the lender has to pay for the basics, for the expenses? Before we continue, I want to remind you, and it's in the charts also, if you want to see the chart. There is one thing that a lender does not get, and these are payros. What do you mean payros? Let's say we're talking about a field. It's not a fancy house with mirrors and a chandelier. Let's say it's a field worth million, and I actually am I'm the balchoy. I'm the lender, and I lent you 1.5 million, and you have a field of 1 million mortgage to me. You sold it to a very nice farmer. It's in the Golan, this whole thing, and he invested in a nice vineyard worth 1.5 million. Oh, say, no, maybe I can take the fruit. And those grapes are ripe. They don't need the karka anymore. They can just be harvested any given second. Do I, the Baal Choiv, get the fruit as part of my halva? No. The fruit that are about to be picked or harvested or whatever, although they're physically on the tree, but because they are not really part of the land, you know who's going to get them? The buyer will keep them. They're not part of the land anymore. They don't need the land. The buyer will keep them, and Mr. Baal Choiv will only get the land for 1 million. What about his other 500,000? Not my problem. Let it get him from other fields, from other places, from the Chinese toys of the loiva, from wherever. Okay? That's the basic halacha which we learned already before by Peiros. Yes. Now we come with an interesting answer based on what I just told you. Yes, Jeffrey, I'm listening to your question. Maybe here we're talking about Balchoiv. Beloy Kasha. It's not difficult. Kan b'shvach megia le. Can you read the next word? Megia lektefayim. Kan b'shvach she'en megia lektefayim. Chavrus and I spent a long time yesterday, and Baruch Hashem, we're mechaben. Kitzer, I'll just tell you the sikum advorim. Shvach megia lektefayim means as follows. What's ktefayim in Hebrew? Shoulders, I think. Right. Very good. So now, say the Meforshim, Rabbeinu Chanal explains as follows. If the fruit, are not completely ripe, but they're not completely unripe. They're one stage before being completely ripe. It's like a middle of the road stage. In such a case, if the fruit are 90% there, like in the computer, loading, 90%, you get happy already? The fruit are almost there, but not all there. By the way, ktefayim, I never knew that that's the reason it's called that way, is because soon we'll be able to schlep them on the shoulders. I always thought Megillah ktefayim means it's already tall, like the ktefayim. I think some Rishonim say that. It's almost to be ready to be harvested and picked on the schlepped on the shoulder. So what's the story of the Megillah ktefayim business? Look at Rashi. A Megillah ktefayim. Korev likotzel. It's almost close. It's close to being harvested. Oh, but those fruit, they still need the ground. They're not so ripe you can cut them. They're almost there. Have a look at Peres Gmurin. They are similar to Peres Gmurin. What's Peres Gmurin? Peres Gmurin, if the fruit were completely ripe, then the Baal Choiv would have not touched them at all. Hey, mister, don't touch my grapes. No, don't touch my anything. Why? My fruit. Because they're not yours. They're so ripe, they're not part of the land. You owe the land, you're not owed Peros. And Louis Tsuyar, they were talking about very young saplings. Then, of course, he would take them completely. The Baal Choiv, it's called Shvach. It's an improved land. Of course, you'd pay more for a land with saplings or small trees rather than one without. This is the middle of the road case, according to some Meforshim. The En Baal Choiv Gove Oisoi Beloy Yetzia, which means these fruit that are somewhere in the middle, the Baal Choiv does receive them, but he has to pay for the expenses invested. Middle of the road case. That's what we want to say for now. Get it? In other words, again, let's summarize. If the Baal Choiv, who's owed whichever amount, is taking the fruit, the fruit that are completely ripe, they're not part of the land. You owe the land, not a fruit that are completely just about to be disconnected. If it's a tree that's young or fruit that are very young or middle of the road, it's still part of the land. Then he gets it. Then he gets the entire thing because it's called shevach. That is like the kitchen or the chandelier or the mirrors invested. It's part of the story. Fruit that are in the middle of the road, they're about to be picked, but not yet about to be picked completely, they are partially his, and therefore he does get to keep them, but he would have to pay for the expense. That's like a middle of the road thing. That's one way to explain it. The expenses, it wasn't harvested. The expenses of the planting, the expenses of the pruning, the expenses invested in the vineyard or not up to that 90% stage, but not the improvement that he gets. Let's say he invested 100,000 and now he has whatever vineyard that's 90% there. It's very promising, yeah. Okay. Now the whole field, the whole vineyard is worth now extra 500,000. Then he has to pay him the 100 that he invested, and he gets the 400. That's the case over here. Fact the Gemara, that could be a very nice answer, but the Gemara claims it doesn't make sense. You know why? The ma'asim b'chol yoim, it's a ma'asim b'chol yoim. It's a done thing all the time. The kamagim b'Shmuel afil b'shvachim b'gil k'tefayim. The Gemara says no, it doesn't make sense. Why? Look at Shmuel's beis din. What was Shmuel's profession? Besides being a doctor, his main profession was a dayan. Shmuel was a dayan, also doctor. Yeah, dayan doctor. Yeah, Shmuel was a dayan, and many times such cases came to his door of the beis din of people that have to collect money of mortgage places, and he would always be magbe. He would tell the lender, the owner of the mortgage, go and take the entire field, even with shvach megillah k'tefayim. Even though the fruit of the field are 90% there, he would say, take everything and don't pay for the expenses. No, it's still called shevach. As long as it's not completely ripe, it's called shevach. And shevach investment is completely belongs to the Baal Choiv. Answers the Gemara now a different answer. I don't know, the Gemara doesn't say Ella, we had a big issue with that, but it's definitely a new answer. And that's going to be the final answer. It's going to be actually an easy answer conception. Says the Gemara very easy. Lo kasha. There's no difficulty between Shmuel and the Mishnah and the Brisa, they're both friends. Ha, the masik bekishir ara v'shavcha. Ha, the lo masik be'ela kishir ara. The yahiv l'shavcha misalik le. Again, lo kasha. Ha, the masik bekishir ara v'shavcha. Masik be means how much is he owed. I kept telling you all the time, if he's owed 1.5 million, the field was worth 1 million. The field now is worth 1.5 million. Said Shmuel, and Shmuel sticks to his gun. You get 1.5 million invested. So what? He'll get his compensation from who? From the seller. I'm owed 1.5 million. The field was 1 million. It mushroomed into a half, an extra half. Shem loves me. And then I'll get the entire 1.5 million. That's what I'm owed. That's what I'll get, says Shmuel. And the Brisa doesn't argue on that. What the Brisa spoke about, the loy masik be'ela kishur ara. Very easy. Let's say he's only owed 1 million, and the field is now how much? 1.5 million. Okay, yeah. The shavche umesalikle. In that case, you know what he has to do. Basically, yayivle shavche. The person, I'm asking you a question. The guy's only owed 1 million, Mr. Reuven. Levi the Lokeach now invested 1.5 million. Nobody's going to uproot the trees from here, right? Or undo all the chandeliers and all the carpets and all, right? So what do you actually do? One very logical thing, and that's what we're doing here. Basically, we're saying, unlike what I said yesterday, by the way, I don't know if it's a mistake or a havamina, it's like a mistake, but not a foolish one. Basically, what we're saying is mesalikle with money. I, Mr. Reuven, the creditor, the banker, the one owed, the one with the mortgage, yeah, I'll take hold of the entire apartment, and I will not leave you not even one room, as opposed to what I said yesterday. What about the extra 500,000 you lost? Bank transfer is coming tomorrow. Mesali clay bezuzi. I am adding a word to the Gemara. Basically, he pays him the change in cash. Ever bought something in the store and got cash and got change? Soon it's not going to happen, because soon there won't be any cash in the world. That's besides the point. But Lamaisa, he's just getting the entire thing, and he's going to pay him back in cash, 500,000. As opposed to what I said yesterday, and by the way, that's what the Gemara is coming to exclude from, that he will not leave him one room in the apartment. He will not leave him a third of the amusement park. He'll kick him out, and that's the chiddush actually of the Brisa. He'll kick him out of the place completely. It's all mine. I'm getting hold of the entire place, says Mr. Malve. I'm owed how much? 1 million. and I'll take you out of the entire place, 1.5 million. Don't worry, mister, stop screaming at me. Tomorrow, I'll give you 500,000 back in cash and be quiet. Yeah. Why did the Gemara say expenses? Hey, excuse me. Says Rashi, the Gemara says he only pays for the expenses. No. Says Rashi, Jeffrey will be happy now because you pointed that before, Jeffrey. Yeah, that we're coming to say that in case I'm owed 1.5 million, right? And let's say it's not 1.5 million. What you have is 1 million and a failing investment. You invested 100 and got 50. All I have to pay you a top of let's say I'm owed 1 million. Your apartment is worth 1,050,000 and invested much more. Then I only have to pay for the investment and not for the investment, only for the shevach, which is less than the investment. You invested 100, we only have 50 extra. I'll pay for 50, not for the extra 50. It's not in my business. I didn't gain anything. You lost. But lemaise begadol, it's not difficult. He's getting the entire field, and if there was good investment, it yielded fruit. You'll just pay him in cash, misalikle, and give him the extra in cash. That's all. And that's what the Brisa says. And Shmuel never argued on that. Shmuel is good with that. Everyone's happy. Frag the Gemara. Again, shall I repeat quickly or no? No. Hanicha, are you with us? Yeah, we're in the Amud Beis in 6 lines from the top of the page. Hanicha leman de Omar. Now comes the Gemara. Before we continue, let me introduce you to Machloikes in Ksubis. Yeah? Machloikes Ksubis is as follows. Let me ask you the following question. Let's say you're Levi, and you are the one who got a very nasty knock on the door. Hi, hello. My name is Reuven, and I'm the one whose apartment is mortgaged to. I'm a Gmach guy, I'm a banker, I'm a whoever, yeah? And therefore, get out of here quickly. Let's say, yeah, and Levi says, okay, I'll move out of here. Who will I go to cry to? To Shimon the seller, Shimon the Schwindler, whatever. What about if Levi says, I love the apartment. I love the place. I can't detach myself from that nice, beautiful place. It's right next to a garbage dump. I have to stay here. Yeah, it's so nicely invested. I'll pay you the entire thing in cash. Can you say that? Levi, I have cash. I have cash. I'll give you the whole debt in cash. And then I'll arrange myself against two. I'll be okay. Yeah, I'll sort it out with the seller. Can you do that? Or can Mr. Shibud, Mr. Reuven say, no, I like that apartment. That apartment is meshubed to me, and now I'm very happy. I had my eye on it all the time, and I actually will not accept your kind offer to give you money. I want the house, only the house, and nothing but the house. What's the question? Yeah, how strong is the stronghold on the apartment? Can he be mesulak? Can he be replaced instead of getting in the house? The balchoiv, the mortgage one, yeah. Can he be paid back with cash or no? It's a machlekes. It's a machlekes in Ksubas, machlekes b'Ksubas. Here it says daf sam in Tzad etc. Track the Gemara now. Now the Gemara is asking the following question. What did we say over here, by the way? Over here we said like this. We said very, very easy concept actually. This whole balagan is very easy. Shmuel is happy and the Brisa is happy. Why did the Brisa say that the lender has to pay anything? Very simple. He has to pay cash because he got extra, right? Ever gave the guy in the shop 100 shekels, he gave you 50? Every 3 years old knows about that. So what's the story? Yeah, I'm owed 1 million. I got 1.5 million in bulk, and I cannot, and I don't have to let you stay there in one room. I'll take the entire place, and that's a chiddush. What about the extra 500,000? I'll pay you in cash. Change back, cash back. Frag the Gemara, it sounds all very nice and simple, but it's not. Why? All that we said up until now is good. According to Mando Omar, according to the one who says, if the buyer has cash, how much? Let's say 1 million that he's owed. One opinion says no. The Baal Choiv can insist, stick his feet into the ground and say, I don't want cash. I want the house because I was here before you. Not as an owner, but as a not debtor, as a creditor. As a creditor, I already had it written that these houses of the loiver are not mine, but meshubed to me, mortgaged to me, before you came into the story. Get out of the house. I like that house with the carpets and the chandelier. According to him, Shapir, it makes a lot of sense because that's what's going on over here too, right? He's kicking the guy out of his house, the buyer, and you feel you are cheated? No, I'll give you the cash. I'll give you cash back for the investment. But according to the one who says, according to the other opinion in Ksubas that says, Ki isle zuzi lelokeach matzi. What's matzi? He can. The one who says that if the lokeach has money, matzi, he is able to misalik lebal choiv. Yeah, the other opinion, and that's the halacha, says what? If the buyer wants the house, it says, listen, get out of my house. You owed money, I'll pay you money. I'll pay you cash. And yes, he can do it. Yeah. Why? Because you're not the owner. You're only owed. You're not an owner. Ownership, I'm the first one to be the owner. You get out of here and I'll pay everything in cash. If so, in this case, in our case, name alay, he should tell him who the buyer should tell the lender. Excuse me, you're kicking me out of my new house worth $1 million plus $500,000, right? You're kicking me out of the entire estate, as opposed to what I told you yesterday. He does not leave him a room, does not leave him part of the field. No, you're kicking me out, and you are very graciously paying me cash back. No, if I wanted to, had I had money, I would be able to get you out of the ground, you, Mr. Lender, and pay your debt with cash and stay with the house. Hashta the Leslie Zuzi, now that I don't have enough money, Havli Gava de Ara, give me a piece of land. Gava is like a small piece of land, Be'ara, in the land, in the field, Shil Shvachoi. If the amount of Shevach, like I suggested yesterday. In other words, because my ownership here is stronger than yours conceptually, I don't have $1.5 million. Okay. But Lamaisa, from $1 million, from 2/3 of the field, he can kick me out. I have no choice. Excuse me. But 1/2, which is 1/3 of the entire amount, leave me. Let's say the Shevach is worth $500,000 and the house has 3 rooms. We can't disconnect the Shevach from the house. It's all tiles and floors and jacuzzis and saunas. But Lamaisa, 1 room out of the 3, leave me, because my ownership here is stronger than yours. So though I don't have the entire amount, at least leave me some of the amount in the shape of money, in the shape of apartment, in the shape of a house. Why don't we say that? How can he kick me out all of a sudden, according to that Mandomar? My stronghold of the house is stronger than the Malva. I'm the owner here, not him. Answers the Gemara and Ukimta, and with that we stay. According to this opinion, we have to make an Ukimta. Do you remember the word apoitiki? Apoitiki appears a few times in Shas, and if you forgot what it means, the Gemara explains what it means. The Omer Lei, when the original loan took place many years ago, from who? Between Reuven and Shimon, before Levi came to the story. Shimon, the borrower, told Reuven, the lender, Lo yelecha piron ela mizu. Your only piron, your only source of payment, in case I fail to pay cash, will only be from this particular house that was sold eventually to Levi. Which means, like this. If I, Levi, let's say Reuven, excuse me, let's focus on Shimon now. Shimon was a bit out of the limelight in the past few minutes. Shimon is the guy who has many fields. Shimon is a big machara. Shimon, the good guy, has many fields, and he borrowed money. Ganze macher borrowed money, and he has many fields. He borrowed, and now what's mortgaged? Any of his fields, any field. The one in Ranana, the one near Eilat, or the one in China. Any field is potentially mortgaged. That's regular shibud. In that case, if Levi bought one of those fields, the one in Ranana, let's say bought that, then according to this opinion, really Levi has more power than anybody else. Levi is the real owner. If Reuven comes knocking on his door because Shimon failed to pay, then Reuven tells Levi, get out of here. And if Levi has cash against the whole thing, Levi says, no, you get out of here and I'll compensate, I'll give you cash for the loan and I'll go back to Shimon later. In this case, he can play halfway that game and can say, excuse me, I want to keep my shevach. I have more rights than you. You owed $1 million, take $1 million. What about the other half? Leave me 1/3 of the field. Yes, I have the right to do it. So why did we say in our brisa that Reuven can kick Levi out of a place completely, and Levi will be compensated with cash. You know why? We're talking here about a case going back to the original loan between Reuven and Shimon. When Shimon borrowed the money, it was a different agreement. It was an agreement called apoitiki. Apoitiki means in Aramaic, it's an acronym of apo tehe tai. Only this field will be your shibud field. I am a very big, mogul, land, I'm a big tycoon, real estate tycoon. Out of all 100 fields that I have, the agreement was one and only field. The one in Ra'anana will be the only field from A to Z that's meshubad to Reuven. In that case, Reuven has much more power over the field because that's his only source of payment besides cash. In that case, Reuven is stronger than Levi. And when the knock on the door comes, Reuven knocking on Levi's door, Reuven tells Levi, I'm so sorry. Wow, I feel for you. Get out of here right now before I call the police. Because including all the rooms, all the bathroom, all the tiles, and Levi will scream, but I invested $500,000. $500,000 will come to your account tomorrow, not yesterday. $500,000 will come to your account tomorrow, and get out of here right now. Please pack your bags before it's going to get ugly. Why? Because in that case, Reuven says, I am an apoitiki guy. Apoitiki means my rights over the field are stronger because it's the only field that's a source of payment for me. Apoitehe kai. And therefore, in that case, and that's what the Brisa spoke about, the extremely specific case. But it's not a big yokinta because I'm sure people do apoitiki. Lemaisa, I think today in the bank, the mortgage specific things, right? Not general. So I think today, most of it, as a thing I told you before that's fascinating, you want to learn some Spanish? Yeah, of course. Yeah, in the middle of the Gemara. The word for mortgage in Spanish is hipoteca. I wonder why. Now we understand, right? Hipoteca, you have to spell it with an H. Don't forget the H before the hipoteca. Yeah? So then that's a story. But if the shibud was general, when Reuven and Shimon said a few months ago, years ago by the lawyer, then Shimon said, any of my fields is your shibud to Reuven, then no. Then Reuven doesn't have specific rights over Levi's field. And then Levi can negotiate and either keep for himself a part of the land against the Shevach and not be completely kicked out and say, no, I'm keeping the Shevach to myself in the shape of part of the field. We did it. The next part of the sugya is much easier than before. It's a smooth sail comparing to now. Now is also very easy, but the next sugya will be even easier. And now is time for questions. We are still in China. No, I was joking about before, but no, the next one is really easier. The next sugya is about the same topic, but it's really easier. I promise. It's really easier. Now, similar Indian, but really very different. Up until now, we said that the buyer Levi is an innocent piece of guy. He didn't know it was stolen. Let's say Levi knows that the land is stolen and he still bought it. Wow. Let's say we can prove it. There are adim, there are stories. I don't know. You see his WhatsApp history. I don't know what exactly. Lamaisa, let's say we know that Levi knew that it was a stolen field in the hands of Shimon, the Schwindler, the seller, the da-da-da, right? And he still nevertheless bought it. Okay, why should that make a difference? Let's see. Amarav, Mois Yeshloi. Now, let's say he goes back to Shimon the Schwindler, Levi, who knew very well that it was stolen. He goes to Shimon and says, the field was taken away from me by Reuven, the right guy. Pay me back the basic. Says Rav, he gets the basic amount of money. The $1,000,000 that he paid Shimon, he gets back from Shimon. Shevach enloi. But if he invested another extra $500,000, that he doesn't get from anybody. No questions, no point for questions. Now, with Shmuel says, afilu mois enloi. Shmuel says he doesn't get anything, zilch, zero, nada. In other words, if he bought the field from Shimon knowing that it's stolen, he cannot go back to Shimon crying and say, the field was taken away from me, really. Yeah, and therefore pay me. Nothing, he will not be paid anything. So basically, the Mechlokas Rav Shmuel, Rav says he gets paid the basics from the Ganav, whom he knew was a Ganav, and Shmuel says doesn't get anything. Now comes a completely different light on the whole thing. What do they argue about? It has nothing to do with what? Nothing to do with shibudim or a price or anything. Rav says as follows: Adam yodea shekarka enloi. The man knows, the buyer knows that he has no karka, right? In other words, he knows that the karka is not his. The gomer v'nosan l'shum pikodoin. really, why do you buy from a Ganav? Forget about the fact that it's not exactly moral, it's also stupid. Why? Because you know that eventually it will be taken away. So why did you buy it knowing that the bubble is going to blow very quickly? You know why? He wanted to give Pikodon, all he knew it's going to quickly, the land will quickly go back to Reuven. They'll knock on the door, he'll have to give it to Reuven. But he wanted just his cash to be deposited in the hands of Shimon. He wanted it to be in the hands of Shimon. He wanted it to be deposited in his hands. So really, it was just a deposit. Frag the Gemara. What? Money laundering. It's not exactly money laundering. Just wanted it deposited, not whatever, maybe. Okay. V'nei malei. Frag the Gemara. V'nei malei l'shum pikodon. Why are we so twisted over here? If all he wanted to do is deposit money, tell Shimon, can you do me a favor? Or Luciano, can you do me a favor and really and actually hold the money for me? Why do you have to do the whole twisted thing of I'll give you money and you give me land instead? And says Gemara, Sovar loy mekabel. He thought that Mr. Shimon the Schwindler will not be happy to just hold the money for him as a favor. Yet to just hold my money for me, people don't want. I don't need your 100,000 or million shekels, actually, in this case, $1 million to be deposited in my house. I don't know. I'll be scared. Let's say Yosef will give me $1 million, one of $1 million to keep in my house as a picodon. I'll be scared. It's too much of responsibility. But if I know that I sell you the house, which the Ganav is happy to, he doesn't mind, then in a chinami, then I'll give you the money, you give me the land, and I know that eventually it will blow up. So what? The money will go back to me. I planned it in advance. I knew Enochinami that the whole thing's going to blow. So what? Picodon is for a time. You deposit money in the bank in one of these half a year programs. Half a year. In half a year's time or so, the guy will come back from Spain and the guy will, the Reuven, the real owner, and Enochinami, then it will blow up. I don't care. I enjoyed it while it lasted. I had money as Picodon. And therefore, I should get back the money. Now, Shimon cannot say, I'm not giving you the money. Give me the money, of course. The whole sale came out to be fraudulent, of course, and Mimela now give me back my money, and that's exactly what I wanted. I wanted the money to be back by me because the time of the Pikadon is over. Pikadon Ktsar Moed, Pakam, every Israeli should know this word. Now we are in a country which is weiter. The Shmuel Sovar, the Shmuel Sovar, Shmuel thinks, Adam Yodea Shikarka Enlo. Shmuel says the man knows that. Who's the man? Levi knows Shimon does not have the real land. He's not the owner. The Gomer V'Notan L'Shumatana. He decided to give a gift. Shmuel explains the psychology of such a person, of Levi the Lokech from Shimon the Schwindler. He really wants to give Shimon a matana. He wants to give him $1 million matana. Such a nice guy, Shimon the God. If it's his son-in-law, it's his son, it's his brother, rehabilitation from his bad habits, whatever, you give him money, he'll behave better. They say nowadays, the Mechanchim. Lamaisa is giving him $1 million as a matana. And therefore, once the deal blows up in their faces because Reuben comes and demands the money from Levi, Levi cannot go back to Shimon and say, where's the money? Because we assume it was given as a matana. Because we can prove that Levi knew that the whole thing is baloney, Mimela, we can say that really it was only a gift in the hands. His idea was to give a gift into the hands of Shimon. Frag the Gemara again, why didn't he say it? If it was matana, I'm now the lawyer of who? Of Shimon, excuse me. Why didn't you say that? Why? I don't think it's a matana. Why should you really? Yeah, you should have said it. Why are you playing games? Say, hi, Shimon, I love you. I'm giving you a matana, $1 million. Answers more the same thing. Shimon is such a nice guy. He's a thief, but he's a thief with a lot of self-respect and dignity. He does want to get matanas. To steal, he doesn't mind. But there are such people. He's a hardworking man. He has a nice office in Manhattan on the top floor. He runs half of New York, the mafia, the police. But to give gifts, receive gifts, you think I'm a baby? No way. But because I want to gift him, I want to gift him in a respectful way, so I Ki'ilu buy something from him. Yeah, many times you have this guy who's no hard for cash. You buy something from him which you don't need. That's an easy way for him to have money. And that's what he's doing over here. Now, Frag the Gemara, that machloikas, a very, very similar machloikas of what? Of the psychology. Let's summarize the machloikas. Machloikas is when I behave in a way that seems foolish, and I give money for a purpose that is not really a purpose. I give money for a purpose of which I know it's going to blow up in my face anyways. It's not a real deal. Why do I do it? Says Rav, it's a pikodon. All I mean to do is just be mafkid in some twisted, funny way. I want to deposit money in the hands of the so-called seller. That's Rav, and therefore I may be able to get it back from him to retrieve it. And Shmuel says, Shmuel and Shimon, Shmuel says no, it's a matana. When he makes such a funny deal, the assumption is it's a matana that should stay in his hands. They already argued about that point in Maseches Kiddushin, Daf Mem Vav. There's a very similar machlokes, the Itma. It says over there, a person told his sister, and they know very well that he's a brother and she's a sister, and he told her, give her a nice ring, or I don't know, 500 shekels, and he told her, you are my Mekudeshes. Now, everybody knows that doesn't work. I think even Rabbi Elizabeth knows that such things don't work, yeah? So Reuven and Rachel know that this is not a real thing, right? So why did he do it? What's the point? Is it a Purim spiel? What's the idea? How do we assume, what do we assume is behind the psychology? Rav says, Mois Choizrin. Rav says, he tells that Rachel, the game is over, give him back the 500. The show is over. Give him back the 500, and she should. Shmuel Omar, Mois Matono. Shmuel says, no, the money is a gift. She tells him, I know I'm not your wife. No, that much I've learned in Sem. But Lemaisa, Matono, it stays by me. The money stays by me. Why? Rav Omar Mois Choizrin. Rav says the money goes back to the Mekadosh brother. A man knows that Kiddushin don't take hold, don't apply to his sister. So why did he give it to her? The Gomer Vanasan Lushum Pikodon. He wanted to give her for Pikodon. He wanted to deposit 500 by his sister, and therefore he played that game to leave the money by her temporarily. Frag the Gemara, Lushum Pikodon. Why do you have to go crazy? Lushum Pikodon. In other words, for Pikodon, tell her, dear sister, I'm going on a Zmanim trip. I have 500 shekels here. That's a lot of money for a Bachar. And now it should stay in your drawer, in your room. Why can't you just say that to her? Elamai, if you didn't say it, maybe it was not his kavono. It was matano. And says Gemara, maybe if she thinks it's a pikodon, she won't accept it for him. She doesn't want the responsibility of looking after the money, which means that she maybe thinks she's Mekudeshes. I think it's very hard to understand. Her psychology is quite not so understandable here, and I didn't have time to look in the Meforshim at this point. It's very, very funny because Lamaisa, what do we say? To receive it as Pikodon, she says, no, I don't need the headache of looking after your 500 shekels. But Shenken, if she thinks she's gaining something, but Kiddushin, then she would agree. So maybe the girl thinks that she's getting something from being Mekudeshes, which is I don't understand. If you have a question, so do I. That's my homework for today. Blineder, Mechavru Senai. Shmuel Omar. Shmuel says, Mois Matono. The Mois are, the money is a gift in her hands, and she shall not give it back to him. Why? Of course, everybody knows that. That's a consensus. Everybody knows. A man knows that Kiddushim don't apply to his sister. The assumption is that the person gives her a gift, but instead of a gift, he wants to give her a gift in the form of funny, fake Kiddushin. Frag the Gemara the same question again and again. The name of Shumatana. If you want to give a gift to her sister for her 18th birthday and you're 20, hi, dear sister, here's 500 shekels for Matana. And says the Gemara, no, again, she's ashamed. She feels bad to receive Matanas. Maybe the relationship or such, she says, I don't need your Matanos. I'm okay. I don't need your tzedakah. He wants to give her tzedakah. Down and out, she doesn't have a job right now. She doesn't want to get a matana, no. But if it's kiddushin, she should accept it. Again, yeah, we have to understand what's her logic with kiddushin. I admit, but in any event, the question is still a question because really, although here we talk about two men selling fake land, and there a man and a sister fake kiddushin, lemaisa it's the same machlokes. In both cases, Rav says that the fake money is pikodoin, and in both cases, Shmuel says it's a matana, it's a gift. Why did they have to repeat the machlokes? Why did Rav Shmuel, being Rav Shmuel, not being you and me, why did they have to repeat the same concept, right, of Pikodon? Yeah, Pikodon versus a gift. Why did they have to repeat it both here and in Kiddushin? Answers the Gemara, Tzricha. Yes, it is necessary. It is necessary really to do what? to mention both machlokesim. Why? Let's say we would only mention the machlokes regarding selling and buying a land from a ganev. I would say only in this case of two men that are not related to each other. Says Rav, I don't think people give gifts to noichri. What's a nochri? A foreigner. He's not his brother, not his sister. To interpret and say they give matanas? No, I don't think the money is a matana. The business world is a cruel world. The best to do is give a pikodon. We say money laundering. Maybe Rav only here would say it's a pikodon, right? If had we not mentioned the story of the sister, then I would have thought, hey, maybe when it comes to sister, who we assume the brother loves his sister, maybe there Shmuel, Rav would agree. Ema moidelele Shmuel. Maybe I would say Rav admits to Shmuel. Maybe Rav, in the case of brother and sisterly love, there's brotherly love between them. Maybe then enochinami, I would say that he agrees with Shmuel that it's matano, because a person is more likely to give a gift to a sister rather than to a stranger. So maybe then they would agree. That's why the Gemara had to mention the story over there, that even by a sister, still Rav believes the relationship is not necessarily so warm, and all he gives her is for pikodon. They eat Rabbeach. And if you only teach me the sugya in Kiddushin, Shmuel, I would say over there, my brother, sister, we interpret that funny money, funny giving as a gift of love. A gift, it's a sister. Aval beho, when it comes to who? When it comes to the business world of a man buying a land from another man, I would have said maybe here Shmuel agrees to Rav. Sricha. Yeah, very good. Therefore, nice. We say we need both to tell me that both in a sister and brother, where there is, we assume, more love and more likely to give a gift, still Shmuel says it's not a gift. And in the cold, heartless business world, we still say, still, even nevertheless, Shmuel still interprets it as a matana. That's the chiddush. That's how we had to mention it on both platforms. Frag the Gemara. Ben Rav Domar Pikodon, Ben Shmuel Domar Matana. According to both Rav and Shmuel, Rav interprets the money as a deposit, Shmuel as a matana, as a gift. Hi le'ara b'maikanochis. This man that came into the land, Mr. Levi, he's doing two things that are foolish. Why? He's getting into a land that is not his, knowing it's not his, right? True. How can he go down to the land? First of all, it is osir, it's an avera, right? How do you go into someone else's land? Secondly, why are you such a fool? Why do you go into it? You want to deposit the money? Cool. So find another way, find another excuse. I don't know what. But you go into a land that's not yours. How does he eat the fruit? Halachically, investing in fruit, very nice investing, but investing on someone else's land. You're on his back. How do you eat the fruit from a land that's not yours, that sucks the energy from someone else's land? It's immoral and just foolish. Answers the Gemara, Sovar, he thinks like this. Ano echus le'ara. He thinks, unfortunately, in a bad way. I'll go down to the land. The avid, the echol begavei. I will really go down. I will eat the fruit. I would really agree that, not agree, I would go down and eat the fruit inside of it. Just like he did. The Schwindler before me, Shimon, the Schwindler, he stole the field first, right? He used to eat fruit over there, and he wasn't yet caught. He wasn't yet caught. Look, he sells it on to me. I'll enjoy it while it lasts. He's really a Russia. He's a Gazlan. And when the land owner will come, then very good. I'll quickly get out of there ASAP with no argument, give the karka back to Reuven, the owner, and the money and chinami I'll get back from who? From Shimon the Schwindler, and I'll tell him you owe him money. Who says he can actually charge the money back from Shimon? Who says that? Rav. And Shmuel says it's a matono. And the Gemara repeats that. Rav doma pikodon, pikodon. According to Rav, that says the pikodon, it's a pikodon. Rav says the heyday is over, nice time is over. I planted a fruit in someone else's field, and I don't feel bad conscience doing so. Although he's a Rosh, he's a Gazlan, he's not a nice guy. And eventually the money will come back to me as I planned. Instead of the bank, who's not nice to me, Shimon is my bank, my pikodon. Shmuel Domer Matana Matano. And according to Shmuel, I'll leave the money by him because I'm such a magnanimous. They're both thieves. The thieves who give gifts to each other in a respectful way. I'm a thief. Honor amongst thieves, right? And Mimele Nechanami, the Matana will stay Bashimon, my good friend, my co-mafioso, and that's what I wanted all along. Why did I get the field? Enjoy it while it lasts. It took half a year, 2 years until the guy hopped onto it. The guy Reuben is in Seychelles Islands. No, he's actually in Fiji, much further. And until he came, I enjoyed all the fruit. Now what? Hey, the party is over. Now the money will either come back to me or stay with Shimon. That's exactly what I planned. And thank you very much. Tomorrow, by the way, we're in for a big surprise preview of tomorrow. Who's halacha like? We had a few machlekes in between Rav and Shmuel. Who do you think is usually right when it comes to money matters? Shmuel. Tomorrow comes a big surprise. Oh, yeah, try and sleep tonight. Atzlach Rav, have a great day.